Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ashley.
That was a really, really weak.
Yeah.
So tonight we got a special guest in the house. Thanks for hopping on with us. Doug Sandberg, what's going on, man?
Oh, thanks for having me. Don't have much going on, but it's always something.
Oh yeah. Well, that's cars, man.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start with what kind of got you into this crazy obsession that we call the car hobby?
Kind of born into it. My grandpa was into old cars and just working on pretty much anything with a motor. My dad's into cars. He still has his, he's actually got a 64 Chevelle that he had since high school, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I just been surrounded by it my entire life. Started off when I was really young, working with my grandpa in the garage. We were fixing old like lawn tractors and stuff, old like Cub Cadets and like the little international yard tractors. And then it just grew from there and never really looked back.
So would you say you're more in the muscle cars or?
I kind of dig all of it. My preference is definitely anything fast, because not a single car in my driveway I would call a muscle car.
Okay, well,
it's because the stuff I like playing with is all, picked it up for $1,200, drove it home, and then just kept playing with it.
Oh, you can find cars for $1,200 that run and drive? That's a new
one. Well, run and drive is a strong word.
Limp home?
Yeah. I mean, it made it home on most of the cylinders.
Oh, well.
And the brakes were okay.
Still running. I mean,
yeah.
So.
The first car I picked up, I was 17. Got told I shouldn't have bought it. Everybody that told me no was right, because the thing is an absolute rust bucket. But I picked up a 70 F100 from the shop I was working at, because this guy, he bought this truck, and they were the guy that owned the shop, he was going to do a Crown Vic conversion on it. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the guy brings this truck over to the shop, he looks at it, he's like, yeah, no, this truck's way too rough for that. He's like, we're not going to do all this work to the chassis and then have to then fix the body, because there's more Bondo than steel in this truck.
I was going to say, if it's not a candidate for a chassis swap, it must have been real rough.
Oh, yeah. So, like a moron, I was looking at the truck for like 3 months sitting there. I'm like, oh, I'll buy it. I'll tool around with it, have some fun with it. It was a 70 F100. It had a 302 of dubious origins, and had a 3-speed in it, and it was converted to 3 on the floor poorly. But I bought the thing. I took a 2-gallon fuel jug, bungee corded it to the inside of the fender, stuffed the fuel line with an electric pump, and drove it home with apparently no brake fluid in the master cylinder, because it rolled the first stop sign.
And that's the stories that keep us into cars.
Yep.
So, what are you currently working on?
I am currently working on a 83 Buick Regal wagon, and had a final push from you seen Tony Angelo's Stay Tuned?
I don't think
on
so.
YouTube.
No, but we'll check it out.
Yeah, so this guy, he took his buddy's truck. It was a D100 with a slant 6, and did a draw-through turbo setup on it. And I've wanted to do a draw-through turbo setup on it for a while, but really didn't want to take the time to figure it out, because like I had the inspiration from like the Studebakers in like the earlier 60s, where they did the draw-through supercharger setup. So I want to do that with a turbo, and didn't really want to take the time to figure it out. And then Tony on Stay Tuned did it. And I'm like, well, now I don't have to figure anything out. I'll just buy the parts he got and slap it on a motor myself.
Yeah, YouTube has kind of made it a little easier to do stuff because now
yeah.
it's, you can just get the recipe off of YouTube. Sloppy did that with the LS motors, and
oh yeah,
I mean,
they have more or less followed his formula for my 89 Buick LeSabre wagon for the LS turbo setup.
So a wagon guy.
Yeah, mostly because nobody likes wagons, so they're cheap. But I like wagons, so I keep buying them.
I dig wagons.
Yeah.
That's cool. So currently, what's the favorite car?
Currently the favorite car, only because of how ridiculous it is the 83 Regal. Just because it's the carburetor's hanging out past the hood line. There's a 3-inch stack going up straight up with a flapper cap, and you fire the thing up, it sounds like a little Mack truck.
Nice. That's awesome.
Pretty sure I gave a guy in a Dodge 3500 a little bit of envy the one day when I pulled away from him.
Yeah. Yeah, those Cummins guys, they like their power.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Cummins motor, I just not a fan of the chassis they came in because unfortunately the rust belt leaves nothing left of them except for the motor.
It's a good motor though. 6.7 is a wonderful motor.
Yeah, it just so happens to be in our front yard.
It does happen to be. There happens to be one of those in our front yard.
Well, just a little bias there then.
Yeah. Fleece turbo, bigger injectors.
Yeah.
Suncoast trans, because that's the weak link of any Dodge.
Yeah.
But that's just the daily and the tow pig.
Yeah.
And it's the opposite of everything else. We're building the Michelangelo R54 is slammed. The Model A is on the ground. When it gets done, it'll be on the ground. And then the tow pigs on 37s and 8 inches of lift. And,
I just got to have a little contrast. That's all.
So, unlimited budget. What's the car you'd build?
That is a fun question because if you ask me again in 10 minutes, it'll be a different car.
My type of person.
The one I always like to loop back around to is a Studebaker Hawk that is set up for like full pro touring, like it's this old school luxury car, fins, and it goes around a corner really fast.
Well, if you're ever ready to pull the trigger on that, I happen to know where there is probably a dozen of them sitting. So,
yeah,
local to us.
Well, there you go.
And he has every variety from bone stock to Pro Street with the big block Chevy, blown fiberglass bodies and stuff like that. So we could hook you up whenever you're ready to pull the trigger.
There we go. When I actually decide to spend some money on something.
You and Ryan can make a road trip down here in January and take one home with you.
There we go. I have to swing by the event then.
Yes, sir. January 4th.
Yeah.
Should be a good time. We have an announcement about that at the end of this episode.
Wow, perfect.
So speaking of shows, what's a show or event that you try to make every year?
The show I love going to every year is Gears and Ears out in Morris, Illinois. It's at their county fairgrounds, and it's like 800 cars. They're just scattered everywhere, and you get everything. It's lifted trucks, slammed low riders, stuff on hydraulics. There's even a lot of like the late model like import tuner guys that actually show up there, which is kind of cool because a lot of car shows around here you don't see a lot of the import stuff. unless it's like the Cars and Coffee like cruising events. So
Yeah.
it's fun looking at all the different stuff.
Very cool.
There's actually a guy there this year. He had a Ford Econoline van, painted it up to look like the Mystery Machine. Big black Chevy in the back with header sticking out of the side of the vans, full blown wheelie bus. It was awesome.
That's killer. That's kind of what we're aiming for with our show is everybody's welcome. Try to get, I know my shit will be on bags, static, lifted. I mean, that pretty much covers our 3 cars.
Yep.
But then the
All the heights.
kid that's building the chassis for me, he's a mini truck guy, so he'll have his mini truck, his girlfriend's mini truck. I'll call it her other truck.
Yeah.
They're shipping a truck from Washington. She bought another truck, so we'll have plenty of bag stuff there. Hopefully we get some lifted stuff. Our cruise in has been old stuff, so that should be covered. My dad will have his 34 there and stuff like that, so should be a good time. And I mean, it's at Don Garlett's Drag Race Museum, so awesome venue.
I couldn't ask for a better venue.
Yeah, so excited about that. Excuse me. So the Gears and Ears, that's a show you try to make. So what's a show that you've never made that you'd like to go to?
There is a show in about Central Indiana. It's called the Rust Belt Rebellion, and it's a bunch of it's more traditional hot rods than a mix of everything. But it's really cool because this guy, the venue it's on, he's built a bunch of like old style buildings that it's all like corrugated galvanized steel, and because I don't know how I managed to do it, but I always end up with a scheduling conflict every year for it. And I see the photos roll across Facebook. I'm like, man, I wish I went.
That's the final stop on Rat Stock, isn't it? The Rat Rod Tour?
It might be.
Or at least that venue sounds like it.
Yeah.
I'd like to do one of them, but I have no clue how they're building those cars for that budget.
Yeah.
I think it's a $5,000 budget, not including safety.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't even buy the beginning part of what you're building for $5,000 down here.
Yeah, it's always fun to see how the markets look when you start looking around. Because like if you wanted to build a C10 where I'm at, better be ready to open up the checkbook because clapped
Same
out
here.
C10s, C20s, big money.
Yeah.
On the other hand, want to buy a Dodge D100, $1,000 drive it home.
Yeah, that's
Like,
and I don't know why the D1s never picked up. Like, that's a cool truck, and you know, you can do everything you do to a C10 to it. It might just not be as easy, but
yeah,
I mean, they're nice trucks, and
yeah,
but yeah, C10s down here are ridiculous. But you can go to Texas, and C10s are relatively cheap.
yeah.
I have a buddy out in Texas, and he was like, "Hey, you still looking for a Model A?" And I was like, "No, man, I found one." He's like, "Oh, this guy just drove by the shop." He's like, "This one runs for like $1,500." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said that if I didn't want it, he was just going to go scrap it. And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, this is ridiculous. First of all, your scrap prices are way too high if you're talking about scrapping a Model A.
Yeah.
There's not much metal in a Model A, so.
No.
But, and then, you know, on the West Coast, Woodies are expensive. Model A's are plentiful, but they're still bringing decent money. And a C10, they're giving them away. That's like, and there's so many different avenues with the C10s. I mean, I get it why they're popular. Everybody makes a suspension kit for whatever way you want to go, up, down, road touring. You know, so it's a good platform, and then OBS trucks.
Yeah.
Because no one can afford a C10, so.
Yeah, because even the F1s, F100s, even the 250s, those still fetch a decent price out where I'm at, because it's nobody can afford a C10, and the next thing in their mind is I'll get a Ford.
Yeah. Well, F1s with I forget who did it first, but the guy that did the Crown Vic swap. I mean, they drop right on. It begs to be chassis swapped. And
yeah, especially to get away from the twin I-beam suspension.
The lovely twin I-beam suspension that you can't do absolutely nothing with.
Nope. All that, and if it's not perfect, it eats tires.
Yes.
And funny enough, it was designed by Goodyear, so I think they had an interest in selling tires with that one.
It worked.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember, matter of fact, there's two Rangers that are parked within like a half a mile of our house. And, I'm going to bag it one day. I'm like, for the amount of money that you're going to spend to bag that truck, you could sell it for scrap and go buy an S10.
Just S10 frame swap. It'll be fine.
I offer, so before I sold the 32, we had a 32 truck, and before I sold it, I had offered it to a kid. Like, hey man, I'll give you the body. All you got to do is find a Ranger and S10. We'll stick the cab on it. We'll stick the bed on it. Intro to hot rods. Yeah, I don't think that an exposed front end should be control arms, but it'll get you cruising in something old. You'll kind of get the taste for it. You'll figure out if you don't like it. If you sell it, you pay me for the body. If not, then just keep driving it.
Yeah.
There's too much work. And I'm like, okay, well, then I'm going to put it for sale because my big ass can't fit in it. So, but then we bought a Model A and channeled the floor, and now I made it have about a little extra room than a single cab pickup truck has. But just because of slamming it so far, the transmission is inside the cab with you, so that takes up a lot of feet room. But
yeah, on a body that's already narrow.
Well, when we first bought it, it was funny. Like, I got in it to unload it off the trailer, and I'm like, man, there's like plenty of room in this. I'll never have any problems with it. And then once you put the 18-inch kick up, I'm like, well, that scoots you forward a little bit. No big deal. And then the trans in the middle, and it's like, oh, okay, so that pinches your foot down a little bit. But it'll be all right. I mean, it's not like we're gonna use it to road trip to California once a month or anything. So just embracing the bullshit.
Yeah.
And at ride height, it'll look like a traditional hot rod. So because all the air suspension's hidden.
I've seen some photos of the chassis on Facebook. It's actually pretty clever where the front bags are sitting.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen the first rendition or the second one, but the arms were binding, so we changed it to a flat bar now.
Oh, okay.
That was actually a bought kit, and when he put it on, he was like, dude, it's binding like crazy, and I can't figure out, because you have the shackles on the spring perch. There's shackles where they mounted, and he's like, dude, I can't get, he's like, if I put it down, they bind. He's like, if I put them up, they bind. If I try to put them flat, they flop. And I'm like, well, so he come up with the idea of just a straight bar, so it's still bolt on, nothing's welded. If someone wanted to put a regular spring back in it, the cross member will accept a spring. I mean, obviously you'd have really big side pouches where the bags are sitting now, but it is what it is. It could be put back.
You're not forever committed to the bags.
Oh, and I wanted it because of it being the kind of the poster child for the podcast. I wanted it to be able to fit in no matter like, oh, okay, I could take it to a pre-65 show, leave it at ride height. Everybody's like, oh, that's cool. I could take it to a mini truck show, lay it on its ass. People would be like, oh, that's cool. You know, it's going to be nice to cruise. I'm not going to be stressing it because the 54 being as low as it is, I'm constantly scraping, and I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to get over speed bumps, or you go to turn a corner and it's like, it's like, okay, that's not good. So we're trying to avoid that. So far, it looks like it's going to work. So,
yeah, at least the layout looks good.
Yeah. So the radiator will be the next big hurdle we got to cross because of how high the front cross member is. In order to get it to fit a radiator where it's not 10 inches above the cowl, we're going to have to do some creativity of moving and putting hoses in different locations and weird routing to get what we need, but that's just all part of it.
Yeah, just mount the radiator in the trunk. You don't need anything back there anyways.
It's pretty much taken up. There's a fuel cell back there. We had thought about that, but with everything running and the frame and everything, I was like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And then also, with ground up builds, you always look back and be like, oh, we could have done that different, or we could have started there. Like, there's been a lot of trial and error, and because even though the cross member was a kit, I don't think anyone's ever executed it. I've never seen it in one in person. I've never seen it in a magazine. I've just seen the kit. So it's like, okay, well, maybe this is why.
Yeah, someone tried using it, realized it wasn't worth the effort for them, and then they just moved on to just the mono leaf because it was easier for them.
Oh, and I mean, it's a lot of there's a lot of extra stuff that you have to think about when going that high. I mean, it's like a 12-inch kick up in the front.
Yeah.
So it's monstrous, which is it was overbuilt to be obnoxious. Like, I wanted people to ask questions, and it's going to get that. So that's kind of what we were looking for.
Yeah.
And hopefully this weekend, the chassis will be coming back over here so we can stick a motor in it and get motor mounts figured out. And then it can go back over there to get finish welded. And then I'll invite some people over for some pizza and paint party, and we'll hopefully start putting her back together where come back over here and I can start figuring out brakes and pedals and steering and all the other fun jazzy stuff that I have no clue about yet. Still trying to make it for Turkey, but if not, it'll definitely be at our show. Even if I got to trailer it and push it off. It's all good. It's all part of it. Mm-hmm. So you said you grew up in this car hobby. What is one story, whether it's a road trip, whether it's going to pick up something sketchy, that was kind of like, this is why I do this?
One of my favorites was I found a 390. Well, actually, we thought it was a 360 at the time. An FE for my buddy Ryan for his Fairlane.
Mm-hmm.
So it was on a Ford truck group. The guy was selling it was he thought it was a 360, and that's what it posted as, and it came with the C6. And I'm like, there you go. There's your big block. You bought a car that already had the shock towers cut for a big block, so we could put a big block in it. He's like, okay. Well, it was like February, March, so still like 33, 34 degrees. We hop in my 70 F100, which has no heat, and I just got done four-linking the back like 3 days ago. So the thing had very little like test miles on it. And it was like a four-link kit for a C10 because they didn't make four-link kits for the F100s at the time. And it was like eBay special coilovers that ended up on the back of this thing because I bought the four-link and then didn't budget out for the coilovers. So I just bought something I thought would work. And they were like 6-piece coilovers, like just different threaded rods holding it all together. And so we hop in this truck, freeze our ass off for like 3.5 hours doing 65 mile an hour in this truck with just glass packs on it dumped out just behind the cab. So we're going deaf, we're freezing. Go all the way to look at this 390, and we pull in the guy's driveway, and it was a gravel driveway. I hit a rut, and you hear a spring just go flying, and the back of the truck drops. These eBay struts disassemble themselves on the 3-hour drive out to this guy's house.
At least it did it in the driveway and not at 65.
So I'm just sitting there, I'm laughing. The guy, I see the guy poke his head out of his garage because he was waiting for us. He's just looking at us like, who are these idiots in my driveway? So we get out of the truck, we walk up to his garage. We're like, hey, we're here to look at that 360. I'm like, and do you by chance have a floor jack I could borrow for like 10 minutes? Like, guy's like, what happened? I'm like, well, my spring's in the middle of your yard. He's like, oh, well, yeah. He's like, give me a minute. I'll move my truck out of the way because he had a 67 F100 in his garage. So he pushed this thing out of his garage for us. He grabbed his front loader, picked up the back of my truck, and we pushed it into his garage, and he let me use his garage to reassemble my truck.
Oh.
And while I was doing that, Ryan was looking at this 360, and we ended up buying it because the price was right, and it was a fresh rebuild. But we got the truck all back together. We leave. I'm just laughing. I'm like, that guy must have thought we were the biggest clowns in the world. Showed up in a clapped out F100 that broke in his driveway to buy a motor.
Hey, that's hot rodding.
Yep. And then as a bonus, when we got home, we threw that 360 on an engine stand because the guy said it was rebuilt, but I'm like, I don't know how it was rebuilt. It could have been done wrong. So let's take the pan off. Pull the pan off. The casting number on the crank was for a 390. I'm like, sweet, you got a bigger motor.
Nice. Yeah, it's always better. It's always good to find Easter eggs in the process of builds.
Yeah. But yeah, the 3-hour car or truck ride in the freezing cold and then breaking down in the guy's driveway.
It's all part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say much. I mean, Michelangelo's got zip ties holding a distributor in time, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
Well, that was the problem, is it stopped working, and that was how we discovered that there was a zip tie holding it in time.
Well, the temporary fix is always the most permanent solution.
Well, when I bought it, I was looking at it, and I'm like, there's a zip tie ran, and I'm like, and it's got it has a mechanical pump with an electric pump, and there's some janky stuff going on there. And I was just like, what's the zip tie? And I was like, well, the zip tie is probably holding something in place. I didn't know it was a distributor. I just oh, it's hold. And I'll get to that. Well, then I'll admit there was not much maintenance done on that car. And then once the Model A came, there was zero. I'd go out, I'd hit the key, it'd start, we'd drive it. If there was a problem, we'll address it when there's a problem. Well, I'd noticed it started getting harder to start. And I'm like, well, this, okay. So then 2 weekends ago, we go to fire it up, and it ain't even like trying. I've been cranking it, it ain't working. So I'm looking, I'm like, well, give it a little shot of starter fluid. She didn't fire. I'm like, okay, well, it's not a fuel issue. Take spark plug out, spark. All right, well, we got spark. There's no air cleaner. I'd pull the air cleaner off when it was on the starting fluid, so it's got air. So what's going on? And I just happened to reach down, and the distributor wiggled, and I went, well, that's probably not supposed to do that. And then I wiggled it more, and I heard the zip tie let go, and I was like, oh, okay. So that's what's holding that in time. Hey, Ash, come here. So I'm trying to time it. Turn it. All right, it fired. It's running like shit, though. Turn a little more. Oh, it's getting better. And then it went a little bit more and stopped, and I was like, hence the zip tie. So wrap a zip tie around it, tighten it back up again, and now you breathe on the key, it fires up. I'm like, there you go. That's what it wanted.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to fix it? Probably not. It's working.
Well, maybe next time people will believe when we say all we did was change a zip tie.
We did. Yeah. My mom and dad thought we were joking when we said, we had to put a new zip tie to hold the distributor on.
Like, like, oh, it wouldn't start? Yeah, we just had to change out the zip tie. That's all.
You just leave a zip tie floating around in the glove box for just such an emergency.
That car, as rusty and crusty and all that it is, it's like pretty reliable. Like, it's got its little quirks, the tack is like turned, so you don't really know how many RPMs you're turning. The speedometer's off by like 20, but it gets up and goes, and minimal smoke. The exhaust pipe hangs a little low on one side because it gets scraped all the time, and just it'll all get addressed once the Model A gets done. Then that'll be the one that goes under the knife. So after the show, we'll make sure all the bugs are ironed out of the new build, and then we'll figure out if we're gonna put a Mustang 2 or subframe or long bed S10 swap. And then Ashley can pick her height, and we'll go from there. Oh, and an automatic. It's getting an automatic.
I don't know.
But yeah, so
might I make a suggestion for Michelangelo? Long bed S10 4-wheel drive frame. Just letting that float there for a minute.
So it's it is a long bed S10 that the frame is the exact measurements for. No, I honestly think it will end up on air. Probably. Static life is awesome, but there's a speed bump going into our monthly cruise location, and I was so proud of it. We went in last month and it didn't scrape, and I was like, yeah. And then coming out, it scraped twice as hard. I was like, no.
I was going to say the exhaust finally clearanced itself, that's all.
Well, whoever ran the exhaust, which I'm assuming came when they did the transmission swap, because it's no longer 3 on a tree, it's an S10 5-speed on the floor. I'm assuming when they did that, they lost their mind for a minute and forgot that the cross member allows the pipes to go over it, so they went under it. So the pipes are absolutely the lowest part of the car. And then when we did manifolds, I had no concrete here, so we did it at Mom and Dad's house in their carport, and there was no way for me to get under it to do exhaust. So we flex piped to make it all connect back together again, which did not add to the clearance that it had. And I was like, when I did it, I was like, yeah, I'll take it to the chassis, or I'll take it to the muffler shop, and we'll get a new exhaust ran, and it'll be level and everything like that. And that was over a year ago. It hasn't made it there yet, but now it's getting close enough. I'm like, I'm going to put a motor in it, so there's no sense in running an exhaust now. But it'll end up with a small block and an automatic, or a LS and an automatic and a Holly. Small block with fuel injection, or LS with automatic.
Yeah.
So every time she goes out,
OptiSpark LT1.
No OptiSpark. The rear end and the Model A come out of an OptiSpark vehicle.
Yeah.
So out of a Camaro, and it still wasn't wide enough. I'm still having to run inch spacers to clear the body with 3.5-inch backspace wheels. So the lowest backspacing wheels I could find, plus spacers to clear that body. So, because that's a big ass body. She's thick in the back. But it's all part of it, man. So, what's one piece of advice that you'd try to give somebody that's trying to get into this life?
Up until like 2 weeks ago, it probably would have been don't get it right, get it running. But I've worked on my one buddy's 65 F100, and that has changed to 80%. Get it 80% of the way there, and then enjoy it. Because this F100, the don't get it right, get it running, went to a whole new level. The guy that put this truck together did a power brake with a dual feed master cylinder conversion on it. Didn't run a single new brake line. He just hooked up the one line to the port on the master cylinder and then just blocked the other one off, which defeats the purpose.
Pretty much.
And then we were having brake pedal issues. So I took the master cylinder off of the booster, and it just had like a little like 1024 screw just threaded into the end of the booster so it reached the back of this master, and it was bent. So got that fixed, and then the front brakes were dragging. So took the wheels off, had S10 calipers put on the front of the twin I-beam, and they weren't shimmed right, so they were on an angle, and the retaining pins for like the caliper would, like, half of it was missing because it was grinding against the rotor and clearanced itself.
Self-clearancing.
Yep. So anybody that wants to get into hot rods, get your car 80% and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And do it mostly right.
Well, and they're never done.
No.
Never.
No, because anybody that says they're done is lying to you.
Yeah. That's why I said get the bugs worked out of it.
Yep.
And I have future plans after that car gets done, and then after we get Ashley's car done. But lessons that I've learned and stuff that I want to do, not necessarily different, but I did have to tell Gasser Garage that as good a deal as that blower is, I can't do it right now. Because Ashley pointed out a good point. That was too much money to let sit on a shelf.
Not that we won't eventually use it, but it's so far in the future right now. It would just sit there and look pretty. And so
she's not wrong.
Well, then you just, you replace the vase on the table with the flowers, with the polished blower.
That's the problem. There's already an intake as my centerpiece.
Well, then bolt the blower to the top of the intake. It's already meant to be.
That's a 3-deuce intake.
Oh.
But there's boxing plates in the corner of our room. You can see there's hubcaps behind me.
Yeah.
There's car parts all in here.
This was my office, and it's slowly been taken over by a car.
I didn't tell you to move your desk.
I didn't say that you did. I'm just saying
we
were running out of room.
I come home and your desk was out of the podcast room.
Well, that's what happens when you leave me by myself.
No, we have other stuff that.
Yeah.
We don't really even have to get rid of the table or the chair or the couch now.
We still do.
Put it there.
We still do.
Just leave you right there in the corner for all live podcasts and everything. We'll just bring your computer and set it up here.
No.
We have half-ass AC in the garage after
Yes, we do.
Saturday's adventures. It's a window unit with an extension cord ran out the window of the house.
Perfect.
But
We got a light and we got AC.
yeah,
That's all that matters.
Yep.
the light's not.
And as long as you got a fridge full of beer, perfect. Don't
We
need
got-
anything else in that.
You got to go in the house for that right now. But
We have the mini fridge out
the
there.
mini
It's
fridge
just
is
not
out
plugged in.
there. It's just I was told a lie and I was like, I don't think that wiring is going to fit in that PVC. And the guy was like, oh, it will. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it won't. And then I ran everything and I'm like, well, I'll put the wire in before I glue everything. That'll make it easy to pull so I'm not pulling through corners. And I went, I told you it wouldn't fit. So now we have ordered. And it's not up to code. So don't come at me. But probably when we sell the house, they'll probably make me redo it correctly. But it's weather tight. I'm just running soft line or soft conduit over to, because it's only like a 5-foot run. And instead of going down and digging and coming up and then trying to, I'm like, you know what? We'll just soft line it straight out of the box, straight to the side of the building, and we're good. So we should have power and outlets and stuff, and we won't have to run extension cords out to the. Still haven't quite figured out how we're going to hang the lights, but
We'll get there.
might have to get a junior mechanic that's, not scared to fall off a ladder that's in the bed of a truck to come hang lights. But yeah, it's all good. It's part of dealing with your bullshit.
Yep.
Well, hit us with the dates, baby.
Alrighty. Well, of course, September 15th, the most important September date, is our monthly hangout at the Cove from 11 to 2. Then September 20th is the third Friday cruising in downtown Inverness from 5 to 8.
I'll be there. Ashley won't.
Yeah. Don't remind me. Rolling into October, we have Trash the Classics, October 5th and 6th in Okeechobee County Fairgrounds. That opens up at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Then October 6th, the same weekend, Sumter Swap Meet in Florida Classic Park in Brooksville. Gates open at 7:30. Then October 18th, the third Friday cruise in Inverness. Then October 19th and 20th is Slam Fest at Florida State Fairgrounds in Tampa, Florida. Opens up at 8 a.m. on Saturday. We will be there the 19th. We will not be there the 20th because on October 20th is our monthly hangout at the Cove, 11 to 2. Then to wrap up October 26th is Florida Drag Strip Riot, drag race and car show. Gates open at 7 a.m. and that's at Orlando Speedworld Dragway.
Make sure that you tune in to the episode on September 26th. John with Misfire, who is putting that race on, will be on to give away some stuff and to give you more details.
Oh, yeah. So we're very excited about that. Not to go into all the dates of November, but November 28th through December 1st is the Turkey Rod Run in Daytona Beach. And then, of course, January 4th, if it's not already ingrained in your brains, our first annual hangout. Very excited at Don Garlis Drag Race Museum.
Pre-registration's open. Make sure you go to hotrodhangout.com.
Yes, we work very hard on that website, so please go check it out.
Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out?
I'd like to thank Ryan for turning me onto the podcast.
Thank you.
Yes, we thank Ryan.
We thank Ryan, man. Well, thank you again for coming on. We'll start with that.
Oh, yes.
And make sure you go
Thanks
check
for
out.
having me.
Make sure you go check out BP Customs on Facebook.
And check out Throttle Attic using the code word Hot Rod. You get to save 15% off.
Make sure you go check out Johnny Jalopy Hot Rod Art on Facebook and the YouTube.
And of course, we cannot forget about the Cove because they are gracious enough to let us use their parking lot once a month, third Sunday cruising.
And make sure you go check out Low Income Clothing and Low Income Photo. Straight killing it.
Oh, yes.
And announcement time.
Drum roll. Insert drum roll. We have our first food truck officially booked. Rat Rod's Wood Fire Pizza, which we're very excited to announce, has joined us and will be there at Don Garlett's. They are on Facebook, so definitely go check them out.
And make sure that if you're local to us, go support him. He'll be at Tractor Supply in Bushnell, Florida on Saturday.
Oh, yes.
And if you go at lunchtime, you'll probably run into us. All right, guys. Till next time, get out, drive your shit.
See ya.